If you don't have time to practice guitar, I'm going to share something with you real quick that changed how I look at this problem. Let me ask you, do you love guitar enough to give just 1% of your day, or even 1% of your week to practicing? So here's the math on this. 24 hours times 60 minutes is 1,440 minutes in a day. 1,440 divided by 100 is 14.4 minutes. 1% of your day is about 14.5 minutes. If you answered yes to giving 1% of your day to practicing, I'm going to show you how to get consistent results every single day so that 1% of your day is something you look forward to and feel accomplished doing. But first, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Troy Serson. I've been teaching guitar for over a decade, and the methods I'm about to share are what I've personally used to get consistent results from my guitar practicing and even recover my abilities when I've slacked off on practicing in the past. Yes, even teachers slack off sometimes. So if that sounds interesting to you, something that frustrated me when I was learning guitar is that no one was ever able to correctly define what practicing was. It wasn't until I started studying classical music that I got a blueprint for an effective practice session, which can be broken into 3 parts: the warm-up, the main event, and the cool down. The topic of this video is specifically the warm-up because in my experience, guitarists are getting the other 2 correct. But those who get the warm-up correct would get way bigger gains for the time they put into practicing. I define the warm-up as a section of time where you practice patterns common to the style of music you're playing with a metronome, and work through isolated exercises to increase the amount of control that your hands have. This usually lasts about 5 to 10 minutes, but if you're practicing for more than an hour a day, you can increase that number. Now, before we get into the exercises, which will take up the majority of this video, let's quickly review how to use a metronome. Personally, my all-time favorite one to use is a classic woodblock metronome, but my second favorite is the one built right into the practice journal app on Dante, which is free, and how I track my practice sessions. On the music you're learning, check the top left corner of the first page. You'll see a tempo marking that looks something like this. If the note value on the left is a quarter note, the click of the metronome, or the beat of the music, is quarter notes. If the note value on the left was, say, an eighth note or a half note, the click of the metronome would be set to counting those note values instead. For example, since this is what it looks like the majority of the time, let's say the beat is quarter notes. In this example, if you're playing 1 note per click, quarter notes. If you're playing 2 evenly timed notes per click, eighth notes. I like to think of eighth notes as my hands clapping together with the click, and my hands when they're all the way open before clapping as the other eighth note that happens in between the click. Playing 3 evenly timed notes per click is triplet eighth notes. These ones tend to trip people up, but my students usually get great results by picking a 3-syllable word to say where the first syllable falls on the beat and the other 2 happen in between, such as banana, pineapple, banana, pineapple. This syllable trick for rhythm is from the Suzuki method for learning instruments. I didn't go through the Suzuki system growing up, but a Suzuki trained teacher told me this one day, and I thought it was genius, and I've been using it with my students ever since. Playing 4 evenly timed notes per click is 16th notes. Similar to the last one, we could use 4-syllable words or phrases, like avocado, 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 or peanut butter, peanut butter, peanut butter. Take a moment to quickly try all 4 of these on your open E string with a metronome set to a slow tempo, like let's say 50. For all of the following exercises, pick players will play the exercises with alternate picking unless otherwise specified, and fingerpicking players will use all 3 of IM, MA, and IA for each exercise unless otherwise specified. Since fingerpicking players are playing each exercise 3 times, it's recommended that pick players repeat each exercise 3 times. And for the rest of the video, if you'd like to follow along with the tabs and make sure that you're not making any mistakes, I've put together a practice guide that will show you everything that you need to do for this daily practice, link in the description. When I was a teenager, I didn't know anything about scales, but I knew that practicing was important. After taking some time, I decided that my definition of practicing would be intentionally highlighting a weakness in your playing with the purpose of correcting it. From there, I methodically built exercises based on the number of notes being played on each string, which I like to call scale-like patterns. Starting with 2 notes per string, we're going to use fingers 1 and 2 to play all the way down the strings at, say, frets 5 and 6. Alternate pick the strings all the way down from low E to high E, playing this 1-2 pattern on frets 5 and 6. Once you get to the high E string, play the pattern backwards, going 2-1 on each string on frets 6 and 5. It's really important that you play this exercise at a speed where you can maintain full control of your pick and your fingers. If you're struggling with this, set a metronome and match yourself to the click of the metronome. We're playing 2 notes per string, so we'll treat the beat of the metronome as quarter notes and the notes that we're playing as eighth notes. There are 6 different combinations that you can work through like this: 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1 and 4, 2 and 3, 2 and 4, 3 and 4. Knowing what I know now about formal practice technique, I can tell you that for best results, the aim of this will be to not move your hand, only move your fingers. This means you have to set your hand up in a way where it's easy for the pinky to reach everything. since it's shorter than the rest of your fingers. I call this biasing towards your pinky, and I found that this is a secret to getting notey riffs like the one in Master of Puppets down with ease. Next, following the same train of logic, we can practice 3-note per string patterns. These will be triplet eighth notes to the metronome if you're using a metronome. Some people find these harder than 4 notes per string because the order of the alternate picking changes each string. Down, up, down, then up, down, up. In my experience, the less you think about this though, usually the better it goes. For these, there are 4 different combinations that you can do. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 4. And similarly, the best thing you can do is bias towards your pinky and only move your fingers, not your hand, while maintaining a straight wrist like the pictures in the guide. Now for 4 notes per string, you might think to yourself, there's only one combo I can do for this one, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I used to think the same thing. Then I came across Steve Vai's 10-hour guitar workout and I saw that he takes this 4-finger pattern and starts on a different finger each time. The first time through you'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, then 2, 3, 4, 1, then 3, 4, 1, 2, then 4, 1, 2, 3. And on the way back up, they're the reverse. These exercises are as much mental as they are physical, and I used to drill them when playing in a metal band. Personally, I found it helped a lot. But let's say that you're trying to play more melodically, and these finger combination drills are giving you the dexterity and the control you want, but not the melodic sound that you're after. That's when we start practicing scales. And typically when people talk about practicing scales in this context, they're referring to major and minor scales. If these are brand new to you, major and minor scales are heptatonic scales. They each contain 7 notes, with hepta meaning 7. The spacing between those 7 notes is what defines the scale. Major scales are spaced out whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And the natural minor, the first of the 3 types of minor scales, is spaced out whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, whole. Each major scale has its own relative minor, which is a minor scale that uses the same notes. And similarly, each minor scale has its own relative major. For example, C major and A minor use the same notes, and so do G major and E minor. Notice the relationship between the two? The relative minor starts on scale degree 6, the 6th note of the major scale, and the relative major starts on scale degree 3, the 3rd note of the minor scale. The other 2 types of minor scales are the harmonic and the melodic minor. The harmonic minor was created to give more of a musical pull to the natural minor scale. What I mean by this is that in the major scale, this leading tone, the 7th scale degree, is a half step away from the tonic, the 1st note of the scale. If I play a C major and just stop on that leading tone, the tension created by this sound pulls your ears toward the tonic. With the natural minor, the 7th note and the tonic are a whole step apart. So in the harmonic minor, that 7th note is raised 1/2 step. For most guitarists, this solves the problem, and in my experience, this is the most popular minor scale used by classical guitarists and metal guitarists. One theory about the melodic minor is that it was created in reaction to the harmonic minor. Some people will argue that the 1.5 step gap that's created by raising the 7th scale degree in the harmonic minor is too wide. So in the melodic minor, scale degrees 6 and 7 will be raised up 1/2 step, but only on the way up, because they also argue that this is the only time that the raised 7th scale degree is needed. If I lost you on the melodic minor scale there, don't worry about it. A lot of people get lost the first time they hear about it, and it'll start to make more sense as you practice it. Speaking of, for planning out what scales you want to practice and how you'll practice them, here's how I like to think about it. I break up scale practice into 4 difficulty levels: open position, closed position 1 octave, closed position 2 octaves, and closed position 3 octaves. If you're brand new to scales and a beginner in general, start with the open position patterns. If you're an experienced guitar player but brand new to scales, start with the 1 octave patterns. If you only have 10 to 15 minutes in general to give to technique practice, also called the warm-up earlier in this video, then aim to spend about 5 minutes on scale practice. This will look like one major scale and its relative harmonic and melodic minors, each played with 2 different rhythm combinations to a metronome, and each of those with 3 different right-hand finger combinations, or alternate picked 3 times each. For the more visual folks, I'll demo this now with 1 set of scales. You can skip ahead using the timestamps if you'd like, and if you want to play these scales at home, I've included 5 different sets for beginners and 5 different sets for intermediate players in my practice guide, link in the description. After the scale practice, the next part of your technique practice will go to arpeggios. This section is specific to fingerpicking players. If you play with a pick, you can skip right to the next section of the practice routine and simply spend more time there. Back in 1812, Italian guitarist Giuliani published his Studio per la chitarra, Opus 1, which in the first section outlines 120 different arpeggio patterns for guitarists to practice. If you have the time for this, it's a lot of fun to work your way through. My instructor in college advised me to split it into 40 on day 1, 40 on day 2, 40 on day 3, repeat days 1, 2, and 3 on days 4, 5, and 6, and then, I don't know, take Sunday off. And the reason he recommended this, as insane as it sounds, is because the majority of fingerpicking music is built using arpeggio patterns. So if you train in your practice with all these different arpeggio combinations, when a new piece of music gets put in you, you'll be able to pick it up faster. But if you're pressed for time, the more functional move would be to pick 6 to 12 of these that are in opposite directions to one another. For example, let's say that one of your arpeggios you're working on is P-I-M-A. What I mean by the opposite would be that you keep the thumb on the downbeat at the start of the pattern, and then reverse the order of the fingers to P-A-M-I. If you'd like to pick your own, you can go through the original manuscript linked in the description, or you can use the ones that I provided in my practice guide, also in the description, which, not to brag or anything, but one of my students this week described these as, quote, way more fun than the RCM ones. The other consideration with arpeggios is planting. This is a technique for building speed and muscle memory in the fingers. Speed and memory might be your goals, but what I want you to prioritize with what I'm about to show you is contact. The stronger the sensation of you feeling the strings under your fingertips, the better this will work. If we do this with the first arpeggio I mentioned, P-I-M-A, you would grab all 4 of your fingers onto the strings, making sure you get a strong contact and making sure your wrists are straight, then play through the notes one at a time, only releasing the note that's being played while the other fingers stay on the strings. After you play all 4 notes, re-grab all 4 strings without interrupting the beat of the metronome, and repeat the exercise for each 4-note sequence in the arpeggio pattern. Even just 2 minutes of practicing like this will give the speed, muscle memory, and stability of your right hand a boost. Try it out. Before we go on to the next section of the practice guide, if you're like how I used to be, you may be struggling with staying consistent. Something that's helped me out a lot is having an accountability buddy, where we check in throughout the week with each other and make sure we were staying on track with our goals. So I'm really excited to share, I've set up an accountability group for practicing guitar, where each member posts their practice journal daily, and if I haven't heard from you one day, I'll send you a message to check in about it. To join, there's a link in the description. For a lot of you, this scale and arpeggio practice will bring you up to the 10-minute mark of your practice session, which is awesome. For those of you who get this down in less time because of the faster times on the metronome, or you're simply getting really efficient at switching between the exercises, The third piece of the warm-up is what I like to call isolated exercises. The idea behind this is your technique practice is split into scales, arpeggios, and a specific technique that you'd like to work on with a metronome on a consistent basis. For the past year, that isolated exercise for me has been classical guitar tremolo, but for you, it might be an entirely different technique. Some of my students have used this time for drilling hammer-ons and pull-offs, and some of the players that I work with who use a pick have used this time to work through sweep picking, the closest comparison that I have to arpeggios for pick players. The important part of this time in the warm-up is that you've chosen a technical pattern you can drill with a metronome, and you're doing it within that set amount of time for your warm-up. And after the isolated exercise is part of your warm-up, all that's left to do is practice.